This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free, and it goes to Gibbs White.
First time we've seen them attack them, and there's Brandon! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. Tyler one, he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic!
Here's Bob Williams. He's through here! And in the end, Forrest will say it doesn't matter how you play as long as you win it.
Yeah! Forest Premier League!
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Red Side of Trent, where we come to you shortly after Nottingham Forest's abysmal, abject, appalling 5-0 defeat away at Fulham in the Premier League, which even saying those words out loud is quite staggering, really. I'm joined by Reiss and Lee Clark today. We would have Adam Wicklow, but unfortunately he's been stuck at work, shall we say. So he'll hopefully be the next one. But yeah, I guess we'll start, Reiss. We'll start with the team. I mean, much like the Everton one when we went through that, just trying to rattle through this as quickly as possible, which will never take an hour. Go from there. But Reiss, to start with the team, so 5 changes. Divock came in to lead the line, so Chris Woods. Dominguez came back in for Yates. Hudson-Odoi came in for Gibbs White, which was a very bold call. Felipe started for Bolly and had captain's armbands, and Aina came in for Aurier. On the face of it, what did you think of that team? Because I suppose it was maybe more balanced without Gibbs White, but equally, you're missing your most creative player.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the team, I was happy to see Origi get a chance. He didn't do much, but I thought he offered more in the first 5 minutes than Chris Wood did in the 90 against Everton. I mean, it's now come out that Wood sustained an injury in that game, so I've no idea why he's not been brought off on Saturday, but, you know, that's a different discussion. You know, the midfield three where we spoke about a few weeks ago was looking pretty solid. That was back together, but as we'll move on to, that was a disaster. You know, I called for Felipe to be back in the team because he is somebody who does give you a bit of bite, and for the time I did watch it, I actually thought he was probably the only one willing to put a challenge in at times. But, you know, we've spoke about this in his group, 5th different captain of the season, which is ridiculous. 9th, I think it was it? Different centre-back partnership, which we've not really been decimated with injuries, I'd say, at the back, would we? Really. So to have them type of numbers is alarming. I think he's saying it does, to be fair to Steve, he's trying to just get some mud into and chuck it at the wall and hope it sticks. But to be fair, when I saw the team, I was like, yeah, fair enough. You know, he's given a few other players a go. He's gone back to that midfield three, as I just mentioned. Felipe back in the team. You know, Olorano has been pretty decent over this season, but I mean, he had a disastrous night. And yeah, it just turned out to be a disaster, didn't it, really? I mean, I only watched up probably 15 minutes to the second half. I mean, I'm not sure if Gibbs White come on and that offered anything, but by that time the game was dead and buried, wasn't it? And it was like exhibition football from what I've just seen from the highlights.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, obviously Marinakis had a very similar thought process, didn't he, that long after, going by the pass found in some random West London hedge. But I mean,
well, when we're at hour in and their fans are Olaying at 3-0 up, I was like, I'm not watching this. You know, there will be people who say, oh, you should support your team to end, and, you know, I'm Forest till I die. But Jesus, I mean, Olaying after an hour, you know, I was just like, this is just painful to watch. And to be honest, I thought, shall I stick Man U, Chelsea, shall I stick Villa City on? I thought, you know what, I've had enough of football. So I just basically moped myself to bed and sat and followed the score, and obviously seen the 4th and 5th going. So yeah, not a good night, was it?
It was not a good night at all. But Lee, it actually started off all right. I mean, this is what makes this all the more confuddling, really. That, you know, that we brand new word for you there. That we you know, conceded 5 goals, because the first half an hour was actually all right. Like, Forest looked, you know, steady. They were switching the ball from side to side well. They were keeping the ball well. They went with quite a high line. We forced Fulham back into their half quite a lot. The only thing was we didn't really have a lack of penetration as such. We weren't like, you know, bar the odd Murillo ball, there wasn't really anything that sort of suggested we're going to get through. But it was a massive improvement on Saturday up until Sangare loses the ball because he has no one to pass to. And then Felipe dives in, which he didn't need to do. And then it's just, yeah, I'll let you take away the first goal because that was just a catalogue of errors from so many departments.
Yeah, I mean, Reiss has just alluded to it, to be fair, but there's no cohesion, and there's not going to be any cohesion when you keep making 4 or 5 changes every single game. I just think it was so ironic that the day after we found out that, well, I mean, the Athletic's usually a pretty reliable source. Obviously, they did the report saying that Cooper feels that Sangare is going to benefit adapting to life in England, playing in a box-to-box role rather than the defensive midfield role that made him so sought after at PSV. So, I mean, that's just absurd for me. I think if you're buying a player for 30 million quid, you expect him to come in and play in his natural position. And I think what was really telling yesterday was that the one game that he chooses to drop Gibbs White, if Gibbs White had been on the pitch there, he'd have been showing for that ball. That's not me sticking up at all costs for Sangare. It was still it needs clipping somewhere. It doesn't need passing along the floor straight to a midfielder who can turn defence into attack pretty quickly. But we're not going to have players who understand if you've got a Gibbs White on the pitch there, he'll understand that Sangare is perhaps not quite as comfortable with the ball at the feet in that area of the pitch. You look at the West Ham game. As soon as Sangare got it, Gibbs White had gone. He knew that he wanted to get rid of it pretty quickly, and he'd gone, and that created our first goal. Again, I'll bang the drum all day long on this podcast for Gibbs White starting. I think anyone who thinks the notion of Gibbs White being benched is going to benefit this football team is frankly deluded. I'm not saying that you get the usual comments, don't you? Oh, he came on and we still did nothing. We're 2-0 down. The game's gone. The fans are singing their hearts out for Cooper because they think it's going to be the last time that they get to do it. But I don't know. There's not going to be any patterns. And one of the tweets that I did really like last night when I was watching the game was, there's no pattern to our play. There's no cohesion. Players don't know who's doing what. And when you're making 4 or 5 changes every single game, that's not going to be. You look at our promotion winning team. I know it seems a common thing for Forest fans to do at the minute, doesn't it? And I don't want to become like too stuck in the past with it, but you look at the cohesion in that team. Even if a player came in, even if like a Surridge had to come in to replace Davis, they knew their roles and they knew what their teammates would be doing. When you're making 4 or 5 changes every game in this league, you're just going to get caught out. It's going to be so disjointed, and I think that showed last night. I think the first goal was just an absolute disaster. It's just so easy. I mean, when do we ever get a goal given to us that easy? I don't know. I just feel like it's got to the point where Charity FC's rolled into town every single game, and we have to really work our knackers off. I hope knackers isn't swearing. Really work our knackers off to, score a goal at the minute. It's so frustrating. And the one thing that I thought we were going to do after the first half an hour was actually sit in and make it difficult for them. There was a pass from Robinson that went straight out for a goal kick, and there was lots of moans and groans that Fulham fans don't make much noise at the best of times, but on the TV it certainly came through that they weren't particularly happy. And then within 3 or 4 minutes, we've gifted them the first goal. Of course, 3 or 4 minutes later, there's another goal because that's what Forest do in the Prem. So just really, really frustrating. I'll leave it at that for now because I don't want it to turn into a bit of a rant.
No, it is frustrating. I think what makes it worse is that, like, as you obviously just ended on then, even despite the fact we went a goal down, I was like, you know what, we're still in this game. It's a bit of a sucker punch, that. But because I felt that at that point in time, we had just about it's a fairly even game, but I felt that we were growing in intensity quite a bit. We had the ball more often than not than they did. They hit us on one counter and scored effectively at that moment in time. But Reiss, as soon as that goal went in, it was just like, all right, 7 men, if that. Like the space Fulham were finding, it was just a joke. And literally, Murillo, probably an attempt to try and get us up the pitch because there was no one else trying to do it. And much like at Liverpool, runs forward, gets caught in the ball, and it's just like the parting of the Red Sea pretty much for a second goal.
Yeah, I mean, Andres Pereira's literally calling for it in acres of space with probably a good 3 to 5 seconds before it's actually passed to him. And by that time, he's kind of, is it by Felipe? He's like poked it by. And it is a a decent finish from Jimenez because they're very easy to sky because it had just bobbled a tiny bit. So he could have easily smashed that over, but he's put it right into the roof of the net. And I think it was saying on the Amazon comms, this is a guy who scored 1 in 36, I think it is. Well, he's got 2 against us last night, including one where he's backheeled it into the net. I mean, that just summed it up, didn't it, really? And I mean, I've just watched the highlights again for me sins because we've got to do this podcast. But, you know, the lack of, when a goal goes in, the lack of anybody saying anything from our team, everyone just turns around and it's heads down. And there's no accountability, there's no passion from anybody. Like, look, lads, what's going on here? And I just look at them and they just look on the last 2 games a divided dressing room for me. I mean, we had a laugh and a joke, didn't we, before we started the podcast, where we didn't think they could play any worse than they did on Saturday. Well, they definitely did last night. I mean, I didn't think they could, but they achieved that, to be fair to me. It was just heads down, chins in the chest, wasn't it? And it just looks confidence, morale just looks on the floor. And it was no surprise to me, to be fair, that we completely capitulated again. Yeah, I mean, I feel for you, Christian. I know some others who went last night. I generally feel for the fans that travelled because you're talking where, you know, like the level of refunding type of stuff, aren't you? Because it was that bad. You know, London's a horrible place to get in and around of. So to do it on a Tuesday night and what was it, probably 2,500 in the freezing cold coming up to Christmas to be served up that, yeah, it was disgraceful, to be honest.
Yeah, it was really bad. I mean, like I was saying to you before we started recording, I've been watching Forest since 1999. So obviously, you know, been through the mill and Finn and more Finn, and obviously League One and Championship. That's as bad as I can remember us ever playing. Like I was there when we lost 3-0 at Gillingham. I was there when we lost 3-2 at Walsall. I remember losing 3-0 at home at Plymouth with Megson, and the season we got relegated from the Championship. Dexter Blackstock scoring. You know, I've seen some very, very like bad lows, but that was worse than all of them. Like even last season, you know, I was there when we lost 6-0 at City, but then you could sort of, that was more down to naivety, or you know, it wasn't for a lack of trying or anything like that. You know, you can excuse a team losing, even losing heavily, if they put a shift in. If they're coming off the pitch with, like, you know, their shirts are drenched in sweat, you can tell they've ran, you can tell they've really worked, and they've just been beaten by a better side. You go, you know what, fair enough. It's frustrating we've lost. We haven't got the player quality, but you can't fault them for trying. You couldn't even do that yesterday. Like, it was just, I just couldn't. But I don't think I've ever seen it before, where a team just completely just shut off playing just after the slightest inconvenience. It's, you know, appallingly weak mentality. And you know, what makes it worse, Lee, is that, you know, I don't know if the Amazon cameras picked this up, but at half time, Sangare and Mangala has to be pulled away from each other, like, because all the team got together, they had a little bit of a squabble, and then they both been pulled away from each other and pushed apart. I was like, they showed more fight then than they did in the entire first half. And it's just like, you know, where was that on the pitch, boys? And then, lo and behold, Sangare and Dominguez get subbed off at half time. Gibbs White finally comes on, as does Yates. We go back to a 4-2-3-1, and it's just another case of Cooper trying something and it not working, because we just got completely overrun in midfield, and to the point where we're just chasing shadows for the entire half. And then, not long after, we concede. And I'm sorry to say it, Aina and Felipe, it's embarrassing. Felipe just stops running completely. And how Aina gets like bumped off like that by Jimenez is a joke. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, Aina's done a lot of good since he come, hasn't he? But I think defensively, that's why we got him for free. I mean, it's a bit of a conundrum at fullback, because, I mean, Aurier didn't look particularly good on Saturday, did he? He's not looked particularly good all season. He's gone completely full circle, to be honest, from last season. So yeah, it's like you say. I think the Amazon cameras did pick up a bit of commotion, but they didn't really see that it was that's what it was that was happening. It was just like a group of players had come together. So yeah, I was just thinking actually while Reiss was talking, I'm almost at the stage where I'd quite like 2 players to have a bit of a squabble on the pitch. So the fact they waited till half time is even more mental. But it's the same with, like, I know it's old fashioned and I probably sound like my dad or my granddad here, but you know when a team's losing, it's like the games I go and ref. When a team's losing, I can guarantee, right, you'll get cautioned in 10 minutes, you'll get cautioned in 15 minutes, and you'll get cautioned in 20 minutes. You can pick three players out because they're that gutted they're losing. They'll just go through someone, take a caution. At least it makes it look like they give a toss. I mean, to be fair, looking at the caution that the ref missed last night when Alanga was put into the front row, I think we would have had to go some to get 3 yellow cards last night. But where's the crunching tackle that you sit in the stands and just wince at because you think, oh dear. But we're 3-0 down, and do you know what? I'll give you some credit for that. You look like you give a toss now. Again, it counts for little in the grand scheme of things. It don't get you points on the table or anything like that, but it does show you at least that the mentality is that we've got players in the dressing room that give a toss, and we just don't look like we have, sadly. Um, yeah, I think that kind of answers. It's like I think we touched upon it as well with before we came on the other side as well. I mean, Tavares must be horrendous in training. I mean, he's not even has he even started a game? I think he started at City actually,
No.
didn't he?
Oh, he might have done. Yeah,
I think he started at City and got injured after about 10 minutes, didn't he?
that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't judge one player after one start. He must be horrendous in training. Why have we signed him? And do you know what? I stuck up for the club a lot on this podcast last year because Cooper always maintains that he's heavily involved in transfers. Well, we've got 3 or 4 transfers this year that you can clearly say that he's not signed. Montiel, Tavares, Santos. What? I just don't get it. They're not bad players.
Origi, another one.
Origi, another one. Yeah, I mean, I just don't get it. We're struggling to score. We're struggling to keep them out at the other end. We've got a player who was pretty good in the French top flight last year and a World Cup winner, and we're playing Harry Toffolo and Ola Aina. That's nothing against those 2 players, but why are they not even getting in match day squads? They're the questions that local media need to be asking. They're the questions that we don't need to hear on the radio after games what Steve Cooper plans on doing next, how much he loves the club. Of course he loves the club. He looks heartbroken, bless him. It's clearly affected his mental health, this current slump at Forest. What we want to know, and I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash when he does sadly leave, we want to know who's biting these players, who's getting the players in, and why aren't they playing? It's strange. I just find it very strange. Not just that they're being signed, but you'd think if players like that are being signed and not being played, someone would be saying, actually, you need to play them. But Cooper, to be fair to him, isn't. So I just find the whole situation very, very messy at the moment. Certainly much more so than it was this time 12 months ago.
But yeah, definitely. It does seem to be more of a disconnect this year than last year. Last year, at least, when we were losing games, you could still sort of see there was a lot of togetherness and spirit there. This year, it just doesn't seem to be the case at all. I mean, Reiss, I know you probably stopped watching at this point, and this was the moment Marinakis walked out as well with the 4th goal. I mean, talk about not learning from your mistakes. I appreciate you've got basically going off the highlights now, but like very similar to the João Pedro header against Brighton. The whole back line, the routine crossman and right, just completely shuffled over across, left someone completely unmarked in the back 6. It was a Iwobi, wasn't it? Yeah, and then just basically giving him an open goal. I mean, what are they doing in training? Honestly, what are they doing in training?
I've watched they've given up, mate, by that point. You can see there's nobody closing down. There's nobody willing to follow a runner. There's just lack of effort. And it's just literally a ball's come across, Iwobi's unmarked, and he's just slotted it in. And all it is then is just all the team just turns around and looks towards the halfway line. There's nobody saying, like I said in my last point, what the hell's going on? There's no leadership. There's just literally nothing. They've completely given up by that point. And just to touch on like your and Lee conversation, then it's kind of coming to a head really, that this scattergun recruitment, because you've got players who obviously I think Cooper wanted. There's players who've been recommended by Sirianos from the likes of the Bundesliga, who, to be fair, I think have relatively been decent for us. And then you're probably getting the players who, the likes of Marinakis Jr. are recommending, the people who Lee's just mentioned, the likes of Montiel, who, a bit of a vanity signing because he's a World Cup winner. Tavares, Origi's been round the block anti, but his goal record's not very good. It's clear that Cooper doesn't rate him for us, because like I said earlier, Chris Wood was injured apparently Saturday and he's still playing, and Reedy got 10 minutes. Santos has been brought in, he's not been seen. And these players, I'm just having a look for them, or they've kind of been given the odd few minutes here and there. Then they've drifted to the bench, and then the likes of Santos, Montiel, Tavares are completely out of the squad. You're now getting reports today from media outlets. Joe Wall's not training on himself. Scott McKenna's training along himself. And last season, you kind of felt Cooper kept it all together because there was that kind of core from the Championship. Now, there'll always be, was this ex-player good enough or not? But you had like the likes of Worrell, McKenna, Yates, Brennan Johnson, Jack Colback. And now it's kind of this complete new squad where there's no leaders in it really. And it just looks completely divided to me. And, it just looked like a team of strangers, didn't it, last night? Like they'd never played together with one another. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, if I was going to be completely honest, and I will be honest on this podcast, if the turnaround wasn't so sure, I think we'd be looking for a new manager now. I think he's
100%.
Do I say he's fortunate in that sense? But I think if it was with a lost Saturday, the next game was say next Saturday, I think he would have been relieved of his duties, which is really sad because I listened to his post match last night and he spoke from the heart. He's usually quite mild mannered into Steve, and you could see it meant he was a bit more hearty last night. And I felt for him. He's not helped himself, of course he hasn't, but the players let the club and the fans down last night, especially the fans, because like I said again in my last comment, people's paid good money and travelled to London, which is an awful journey, I know, as a courier. So yeah, it was just not good enough, completely unacceptable.
Just to touch on that point, just before we move on, I actually think that probably suggests. I know there's a certain section of supporters that like to use anything and everything to beat the ownership of the club with, but I actually think that this little situation and the fact that we've gone on another winless run that's stretched over a double figure amount of games since we got to the Premier League, the ownership are desperate for this to work with Steve Cooper, I think. And I think they're absolutely convinced that by sacking him, they are going to take a massive risk. And I do think that in that sense, I'll probably get pelts for this, but I actually do think in that sense, they've got the best interests of the football club and it being a Premier League one in their heart, because otherwise, like we said, they'd have done it by now and just appointed any old Tom, Dick or Harry, wouldn't they?
You can't say they've not backed him because they have. They've spent a lot of money, but look at Chelsea. They've spent £1 billion. It's still not cohesive. It's about you've got to have joint up recruitment, and if somebody's pulling in one direction, someone's pulling in another, and you've got with respect, a World Cup winner who's come to us. We're sat, 16th in the league. Do you think he's not going to be on the phone to his agents like, why am I not playing here? A guy who's still contracted to Arsenal playing, I'm guessing he would have been playing European football with Marseille last season. Origi, who's been at Liverpool and AC Milan, these players have been at big clubs. They're going to be on their phone to their agent whinging why they're not playing. And it's a dressing room can get easily divided by that. And it's clear to see for me, I'm afraid. I mean, in my opinion, we're kind of asking for a miracle to be turned around Saturday unless there's been some drastic clear the air talks with the owner and the playing squad today, because it just looked an absolute mess, didn't it?
Yeah, so there's also. I mean, if we talk about like dressing room fractions, like faction, for example, I mean, look at what's come out today. I mean, we'll cover it in more depth recently. It's obviously, for those unaware, Daily Mail and Telegraph have released, or the Daily Mail first, said that Joe Worrell and Scott McKenna have been banished from training. That was the terminology, banished. And then John Percy followed up saying Worrell's been training with them for 3 weeks. McKenna's because of a contract dispute. So, and then is it, without wanting to sort of like be drawn in for libel, is it any real surprise that the Mail gets an exclusive of Joe Worrell at the start of October and suddenly get this as an exclusive? Probably not. But that's your club captain, and he's leaking that. Let's say, obviously, we don't know if he has. It's all hypothetical, of course. But that's your club captain. If he's doing that, then
like I say,
of course, the dressing room's gone.
Players speak to agents, and that leaks stuff to the media. That's football. It's not ideal, and it, like you just said, Chris, it comes on the back of a terrible loss. It's now been, if that report is to be believed, Worrell's been away from the team for 3 weeks, but it gets leaked when basically the manager's on the verge of getting sacked after a horrendous loss. You know, I find that strange as well that he's still the club captain, yet he's training on his own apparently for 3 weeks. Surely he should be stripped of the captaincy then if that's the case. But
Basically,
you know,
yeah.
who do you put as captain? Because I don't see anyone suitable for the role, to be honest. It is very Roy Keane mentality to go back to Lee's. You know, just smash somebody just to make me feel bad. That's what kind of it needed to be like. But I don't know, mate. Honestly,
I think going back to the game, the lack of leadership was perhaps or highlighted in definitely Lee for the 5th goal, where Ryan Yates, vice captain, who ironically took the Iron Bands off Felipe at half time, which I found very weird. Like, surely if you start the game as captain and the vice comes on, you know, that seemed very strange to me.
Fair,
But
I think Felipe had probably given it him back. I can imagine, to be honest. I
yeah,
get you.
maybe.
I do get you.
But it is just weird, though, isn't it? Like, you know, this is
Yeah.
someone who's been like, you know, won
Yeah.
Spanish League titles, Champions League, a final, etc. And then there you go, mate.
And
Come
from
on.
the school of Simeone, I'm not going to swear, but the B word.
Like, and I mean, just heading towards his own goal, ignores the centre backs, gets caught in possession, bang, Tom Kennedy scores against his boyhood club. I mean, what a mess. Above all else, what a mess.
Yeah, I mean, don't know. We're not allowed to call him, are we? Yeah, it was just a mess. He wasn't the only one last night. I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? Sangari for the first goal. If I see the 3 words "not good enough" after one mistake again on Twitter, for Christ's sake, I mean, come on. One mistake doesn't mean you're not good enough. 3 or 4 games doesn't mean you're not good enough. It winds me up. But yeah, it was a bad mistake. He did it on a night where all of them are off colour. So, I mean, yeah, what can you do? I mean, this is the player that we've been pining for, that we need in the team, because he provides a lot of energy, a lot of tenacity, a lot of passion, shall we say? Yeah, this is what it is, isn't it? I still maintain that he doesn't offer a great deal of technical ability, and I think last night showed that really. But again, don't just say I'm bashing Yates again, because I'm not. They were all bad last night. It's obviously the opposite of credit where it's due, criticism where it's due. We don't just have to criticise the overseas signings that cost a lot of money. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Worrell and McKenna aren't playing because they've been deemed not good enough. With McKenna, it does sound a little bit of an exceptional circumstance because of his contract, but I think there is a reason why Worrell isn't playing, and it's probably because Cooper's sick of him making mistakes. I think being a good player at a certain level and not being good enough for the Premier League can both be factually correct, and I think a lot of our fans don't understand that. And that's, I think, where Worrell. I love Scott McKenna. I think Scott McKenna, from the first moment that Scott McKenna's come in, I just thought he'd be my sort of centre half. And like I say, I won't have a bad word said about him, to be honest. But for whatever reason, it seems that lots of fans see Joe Worrell and Scott McKenna in a different light. And to me, when you're judging them as centre backs at this level, they're both in the same bracket. Good footballers, show a lot of heart, but not quite good enough for this level. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that.
No, I would agree with that. I completely agree with that. It's yeah. I must admit, somebody over. I get, obviously, when you lose 5-0, naturally the reaction isn't going to be pleasant. But some of the things I've been seeing about the players, it turns out like the whole squads are diabolical. You know, Champions League winners are useless, and this, that, and the other. It's like, come on, like, I get you're angry after a bad game, but some of the stuff I've seen,
it's like we've said before. There's no middle ground without fans, is there?
No.
One mistake,
yeah.
and they're not good enough. Like I say, if I see the 3 words "not good enough," I know I'm aware that I keep saying it now, even though I'm sick of saying it. But it's just ridiculous. Like a couple of mistakes. Oh, he's not good enough. Come on, like
that's just social media, isn't it?
It is, to be fair.
And it comes from the mainstream media. Like, you know, I remember probably half a dozen games ago they were talking on TalkSport. Could Tottenham win the league? And then I think they lost 3 on the bounce, and it was like, oh, can they make top 4 now? You know, they're talking about Villa as title contenders today. They're talking about Man City because they're not winning 4 games. They asked the question, to Darren Bent, do you still think City will finish in the top 4? Like, come on. You know, we know, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but we know like City are relentless come end of the season. It's still a long way to go, and that's why I'm not bothered with social media at the minute, to be honest, because when we're in this period of negativity, it's just, people just seem to go a bit OTT, don't they? But you can't blame them last night because, the performance was a joke, to be honest.
Yeah, but obviously what made it worse for some, I mean, was once the full-time whistle blew, like you said, having been enduring Fulham fans olaying passing after an hour with
all 10 of them.
Yeah, all 10 of them. Forest fans singing, "We've got the ball, we've lost the ball, we've had a shot, one shot on target, which came in the 80th minute." You know, some of the stuff I saw and heard last night was, you had fans arguing amongst each other about Sangare and everyone else. You had a bloke with a Billy Davis unfinished business scarf. It was just, you see some sights following the Reds, don't you? But I think the main talking point was straight after the game. You've got Niakate trying to get players over. Danilo's halfway down the tunnel. You've got Gibbs White talking to Kearney and having a laugh with him. Aina talking to Wobie and having a laugh with him. Mangala having a laugh with Castagne. I've got to get Belgian teammates and swapping shirts with him, wearing a Fulham shirt when he comes over. You've got Murillo talking to Willian. Like, lads, we just lost 5-0. Like, do it in the tunnel. We don't need to see that. Get over. Like, Cooper's right to get him over there, and I think it says a lot that even despite the fact he was completely shafted by those players, he still held his hands up, Cooper. He still took responsibility. And that says a lot about the man of the man. Compare that to Roy Hodgson last night, who came out after Palace lost 2-0 at home to Bournemouth and said that our fans are spoiled. And, we are very lucky to have someone like that in the dugout. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on full time, because I thought that was really poor. Read the room. Come on, boys. I get footballers know footballers, of course. I get they got friends of the other team. I saw Murillo's and Willian's Instagram stories earlier, how they're praising each other and saying how great it was to share a pitch for each other, sort of thing. But you've just lost 5-0. Get over there, make your case, and go.
Yeah, I mean, one of my friends put that Vlachodimos had liked the post of us beat 5-0 on the official Twitter and stuff, and yeah, like you say, Christian, read the room, because when you're in this period of negativity, and we know what social media is like nowadays, everything gets picked up on, and any little aspect of negativity gets picked up on. I mean, you tell us, mate, you was the man on the ground for the bingo card. I mean, you say Niakate was getting the players to come over, was he?
He was, yeah. Niakate was he was screaming at Danilo. He was, and then obviously you had Cooper trying to get some of the others on the pitch. Niakate was those what's it? Is it like the sheep herder dogs that run around and get everyone together?
Dogs,
sheepdogs. Yeah, obviously I can tell. I'm much more of a cat person myself, but Niakate was just getting everyone together. He was the one that said you front this, you come over, which makes me laugh, because remember there was a Athletic article fairly recently which implied heavily that Niakate wasn't a leader, and it was after Luton game, wasn't it?
He was captain of mine, so only captain of half a leader, yeah.
But it's all right because he's not from bloody Ilkeston. So no disrespect, Reiss. But
Ilkeston's Derbyshire, mate. You should know that.
Alfreton, then whatever. But
Ilkeston's Nottinghamshire.
But it's ridiculous. But he was the only one that had the guts to say, "You get over here, you face them, you face the music. We don't deserve. We deserve everything we get here." And the fact, there was I saw that one. Was it amongst obviously everyone was clapping for Cooper, really, not the team. But they deserve much more vitriol than that. That was the opposite of Stoke away last under Houghton, where every player was abused off the pitch. Houghton was booed down the tunnel, and we lost by a similar performance but a greater scoreline, and yet they're still singing Cooper's name. I know it was saying goodbye in a sense, but
I mean, no one likes to be abused, so I get it, because you're not going to want to stand there and take abuse, are you? But when you're in the professional game as they are, and they get a lot of money, if it's criticism of the performance, which was a joke last night, I don't agree with personal criticism, but if it's criticism of the performance, sometimes in life you've got to take stuff on the chin, and it's just how the game is nowadays, into all footballers and boxers as well, because to me, boxing, all they want is praise, and when you give them a little bit of criticism, it's all hell breaks loose, and but they had to take it on the chin last night, because as we've said, we keep repeating ourselves, the performance was abject, to use your words, Christian, and to see him going down I mean, for you to see him back going down the tunnel must have pissed you off even more, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just like, you just face the music, like just
Like
you know,
Cooper did that. I mean, that shows that. I'll give the bloke his due. At least it shows it's easy because they were chanting his name, but I'm sure there would have been people in that away and last night who probably want him gone.
No, probably, yeah.
Might have been saying under his breath, telling him where to go, but you know what I mean. At least he's had the balls to front up to it and also front up with the media. I mean, so many managers would chuck the players under the bus, and it would be easy to do that after last night, but he didn't. He took it on the chin, didn't he? And yeah,
like I said, this is a lot about the man on the man, personally.
Yeah,
even despite being like mugged off by players who just decided to stop playing after half an hour, then it's like office workers, don't they? When like I say this as an office worker myself, like as soon as it hits 5 o'clock, like, that's me done. Bye.
Yeah.
That was basically the Forest players last night, except they still had an hour to go. Like
it's a sad undoing, mate. You know, we've all us four on this pod, as have thousands of others, have gone through the brilliant times with Steve, and he's given us so much, and you're kind of seeing it all unraveling and the undoing with, you know, a selection of players who don't seem to give a toss about the club. It's very sad watching it, and you know, he's got another reprieve for Saturday, but I just don't see anything different personally. I mean, I've got everything crossed and wrong, but the positive is we've only got a day or two now to wait, haven't we, before we kind of find out. But yeah, it kind of looks like it's going to be a sad ending. It's a real shame.
I just think all the stuff at the end there, I just think it's a sad indictment of modern day football, sadly. I mean, I'm not going to bash them too much for that sort of stuff. I've got a feeling that I look at Mangala, for example, he seems like a decent bloke. He's still relatively young. I don't think he didn't think in his mind that he was doing anything particularly malicious by coming over in the Fulham shirt. He's probably whipped it straight over his head. Again, I don't want to defend the indefensible. It's a bit of poor practice, isn't it? I mean, you'd like to think that, let's say if Worrell was in the dressing room, for example, I'd like to think that he'd get in there and say, "Come on, what are you doing? Don't do that in future." And he'd have been like, "All right, I didn't realise the severity of what I've done." I always think in England we're a little bit more touchy with that sort of stuff, aren't we?
Yeah, because we're very stuck in his traditions,
If you think about an away game where he's used to in Stuttgart, for example, they don't really have that many away fans. Germany might be a bad example, actually, because I think some games do have more away fans than others.
Travel really well.
Yeah, so I mean, but if they've come from like the Spanish leagues and that, where the away fans aren't quite as, you know, as forthcoming, maybe again I might be trying to defend the indefensible, but I don't think he meant any malice in it. I just think it was a little bit poor form, really. And hopefully he won't do that again. But yeah, it's just all the laughing and joking and that. Again, they just don't think they're doing anything wrong, do they? I've said it before that footballers, with the greatest of respect, they play football because they were really good at football. They're not always the most intelligent bunch of people. They're not always taught that sort of stuff. They'll be taught a lot of media trained stuff in terms of what to say when a microphone's shoved under the nose, but they won't be taught how to act when they've just been beat 5-0, and they'll just think having a laugh and a joke with someone they used to play with or they grew up with playing street football with or something, they'll just think it's just, oh, the game's done now. Like I say, a sad indictment of modern day practices, I suppose.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think it was more naive, I think, rather than malicious. I think it goes fast. I don't even know. I think, like I said, like those players wouldn't have done that intentionally, knowing it would get a rise out of certain supporters. I think it's just, I didn't think much about that. Sorry. But
which is ridiculous in itself, really. I mean, I'd expect anyone to be pretty intelligent enough to know that's going to rub people up the wrong way, but clearly people aren't. It's just the way it is, like Lee said.
But anyway, that's enough of the game for the time being. Anyway, obviously we look at Cooper. Well, excuse me, who is, as you touched upon, somehow still in the job. I get, like we said, it's possibly a very short turnaround. And it certainly seems as if Lopetegui and Glasner are the two names in the frame, if you like. Obviously, this could all change if Forest go and beat Wolves 3-0 on Saturday. But I mean, which would be quite a turn up, wouldn't it? But I mean, what do you think? I mean, I was fully goodness me, I was fully expecting to go home and see corner flag club statement on my phone. Were you surprised he's still in a job for the press conference today, or you think because of the time? Yeah.
Probably because of the time, like I've said. I think if it would have been a Saturday to Saturday, I think you need a glass of water, maybe. Yeah, if it had been Saturday to Saturday, I think Yeah, I think it would have been because it's safe to do a, got rid of the guy last night. By the time today's done it, a new manager would be coming in Friday. And he's going to have one training session to work with the players ahead of a Wolves game. It's kind of like, it's a bit of a loyalty bonus kind of thing, isn't it? Of, yeah, because of the turnaround, we'll kind of give you one more. Similar to, or not similar, but I thought, and I think we all agree, we gave Chris Hughton 2 games too long, didn't we, after he got that point at Derby? Yeah, I mean, I generally can't see it, as I've said, but we'll have to see, won't we? I mean, it's going to be, I'd imagine it'll probably be another team where it's chuck some mud at a wall and hope it sticks. I mean, is a draw going to be good enough to save his job? I mean, that's 2 points from 9 against 3 teams who are around us. I don't know what the parameters are.
It'd be 1 point, wouldn't it? We lost to Everton.
Of course, 1 point from 9. Sorry, for some reason I thought we drew against Everton. 1 point from 9. I mean, that's not acceptable, is it? And then you're playing Spurs at home, who we know have done really well this season. And then, to be fair, the game after that's Bournemouth at home. People will look at that. Oh yeah, we probably should win that one. Bournemouth have really picked up. Have they won 4 in the last 5? Maybe 4 in 6. So there's no easy games is there at this level. Yeah, I mean, the reprieve for me is just because, the closeness of the games. I'm not sure if you agree or not, Lee.
Yeah, it's one of the factors. I think that they got back late last night. Obviously, they'll know that the press is scheduled. Causes the owner all sorts of grief if he's got to turn up and explain what's going off, doesn't it? Not only that, but like I've already said, it just says, to me, it would have been the perfect, because if you think about it now, it looks like the end is nigh for Cooper. But the new manager's going to be looking at our first 4 or 5 fixtures and thinking, I'm not sure I fancy that. I could be, in the mire before I've even got going here. Whereas if he'd have done it, let's say they'd done it after the Everton game, all of a sudden then, if someone, let's say, if someone's lined up, they're going to look at it and think, oh, Fulham away and Wolves away. Yeah, they're away, but they're 2 games that I think we can probably get something from. First 2 games. And then after that, we've got 2 of the next 3 at home. Yeah, one's against Tottenham, but no, they're both at home, aren't they? It's just 2 in the next 2. We've got back-to-back, haven't we? So, yeah, so I think it's a strange one, but I just think it adds substance to my claim that I think Marinakis is desperate for Steve Cooper to work. I think the problem now is that he's got to quickly find someone who he thinks can come in and hit the ground running, because it's going to be it reminds me of when Friedman replaced Pearce a little bit. Whoever comes in is going to be up against it from the off, because, well, he's going to replace a man who's ended our 23-year wait to get back to the Premier League. And not only that, but for what he's the happiness he's brought to people, back to people's lives and to the city, and he's completely invested into everything to do with Nottingham Forest as a football club. He's not just been a good manager, he's been a good person as well. So that's going to be tough to replace. So I think Marinakis does know that. And I think, yeah, the short turnaround time and just making sure that he gets the right appointment is now going to make it drag out a little bit longer.
No, I agree with that. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to stay to the very end yesterday, just because of, like, obviously that was basically like saying goodbye. Like you touched on earlier, it's probably the last. Well, I thought it was anyway. It was probably the last time we'll probably get a chance to. And obviously, Saturday will now be that like fast before you assume, barring a miracle anyway. It'll probably be the final time that we get to sort of serenade him, because, like you said, the bloke's done so much for us. I think that's where it's sort of like, is some of the things I've seen as well have just rattled me a lot. Like, I get criticising his tactics, fine. I get criticising his selections, fine. Criticising how we are in game, fine, because we were very passive yesterday and, extremely static. Like we touched upon, we seem to have no real attacking identity without Taiwo. We don't really know what we're doing with the ball. We get the ball into nice-ish areas, and we sort of give it to Murillo and hope he can clip it to Elanga and hope he can do something. It's very, very predictable watching Forest at the moment in time. But despite all of that, like, you can criticise all those things, and that's fair game. But I think what's starting to annoy me is, like, people who are starting to, like, be personal with their attacks on Cooper and that sort of stuff. It's like, have some respect. Like, this man's done so much for his football club. He's done so much for the city. He's done so much for the community. Like, wind it in. Have some respect.
Like Sharks. That's what I said on Sunday one time. I mean, Sharks, like, yeah, get him out, or has he gone? Yeah, and yeah, fair enough. You can want a change of manager, and I get it. I said this on the pod on Sunday, but show the guy some respect. At least he deserves that. Now, I seen there was a comment to our pod of, we was discussing, someone said like we was adding fuel to the flames, but we've got to talk about it because it's clearly on the agenda. Into let's have it right. I don't want to talk about him going, and I'm hoping. We were already talking about replacement and kind of contradicting ourselves here, but we're saying this on the basis of what we're kind of seeing on the pitch and what we think is going to happen on Saturday. God, I'd love again, as I said again on Sunday, I'd love to come on this pod Sunday after we've beaten Wolves and thinking, well, at least it's all gone away for at least a week, and we can kind of focus on back-to-back home games then. A Friday night under the lights, the atmosphere would be up, wouldn't it, if we were to get a win. And then you never know in football, but yeah, it's just the writing just seems on the wall, unfortunately.
Yeah, very much so, which is a great shame. But we'll see. Strange things happen in football, so we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Anyway, let's get on to some Slept on It thoughts.
Red side of the Trent. Slept on it thoughts.
Right, so Deck Parsons says, I love Cooper, but get him gone and get Lopetegui in, or however you say or spell it. We have a good squad, but no direction, and it's hard to watch. Thoroughly deserve that 5-0 loss today. Yummy Bear says, sadly, the 5 changes seemed like the last act for desperate man, hoping something clicked. We just set up the same way we did versus Everton with no real pattern of play, and it showed. Thank you, Cooper, for the best years I've known supporting Forest, but the time has come. Mark Jackson, we're not where we should be. We're where we are because some of the players have decided to down tools. We know how good Cooper is. Some of them clearly don't agree. That's a disgrace. What a sad end to a great manager's time with us. Emma Hennis just said, I'm heartbroken. Tom says, the players are absolute disgrace. Tonight is on them. Sangare and Dominguez never returned to the bench after being hooked. Cooper hasn't helped himself in some matters, but what he had last season, despite being outclassed, mostly was heart and desire. That isn't there. Thank you, Steve. Emma says, gutless performance, fans a credit. Mangala standing there clapping the Fulham fans in the Fulham shirt is disgraceful. My heart genuinely aches, nothing more to say. Sam says, I don't blame Cooper for that loss at all. While his tactics and selection have been questionable at times, I didn't think he did much wrong. Realistically, what is he supposed to do when the players put no effort in and just forget the most basic things like staying tight to your man? Honestly, reckon he could have done a better job than I know at right back if he subbed himself on. Sammy Slack said, absolutely shocking performance. The players should hang their heads in shame. If that's Cooper's last game and he got a good send-off from the incredible away support. Thanks for everything, Steve. Great pod, by the way, lads. Keep it up. Thank you very much, Sammy. Premier League Elliot says, only thing good about that game was that the away fans stayed right until the end of a 5-0 defeat to chant can't see Keeper's name, not Reiss. Don't blame Reiss for coming off Twitter for a bit, as he's always a pleasure to talk to. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. Ben says, slept on it. Cannot get my head around the players representing our club at full time, laughing with the opposition after being hammered 5-0. It bloody hurts. No pride, no passion. Stuart Clarkson says, Cooper arrived, dragged us by the collar, made us proud to be Forest fans again, helped us hold our heads up high. He captured our hearts and we captured his. Whatever happens, whenever he departs, there'll always be a special bonds. I have to wear my Forest Christmas jumper tomorrow. Of course, it's Christmas jumper day, isn't it? Yeah, unlucky Stuart. Michael Wright says, I don't get why Gibbs White was benched rather than given a number 10 role. Confused by recent selections. He doesn't seem to have a regular captain and can't lift his team. I love what Cooper has done, but any other manager would be chased out of town for recent results. There's no room for sentiment. Grant Fellows says, all but a couple of those players threw Cooper under the bus. Shameful effort when the manager needed him to step up. First 20 was looking okay, then gifted 2 quick goals and totally gave up. I fear that's the final nail. Cooper's time here. Manager merry-go-round incoming. And Carl Booth, last but no means least, gutless performance from the players. Needs to dig deep and fight for the club, and they just let down the manager and the fans massively. If the big man pulls the trigger, that's an awful final game for Cooper. It's not what he deserves at all. Thankfully, it does seem he has one more in the bank at least, and hopefully more to come, but we'll soon see. Obviously, that depends very much on what happens at Wolverhampton. I'm not going to go into player performances because much like
Adam did the same.
Yeah, there's only so much time. I say how everyone's got a 2 out of 10. Yeah. Well, there is one thing I would like to pick up on, and Lee, I'm sure you'll have an opinion on this one. Odysseus Vlachodimos. So I think that most of the goals we conceded, in fact, all of the goals we conceded, it wouldn't matter what keeper was in for the net, really, just because the chances we're giving away. Like, I mean, take the fourth goal, for example. You've left Iwobi completely unmarked at the far post. And he's got, they switched it very quickly, so he's got an open net. But a lot of fans are getting annoyed because it reminds me very much of Dean Henderson last season when we were conceding lots and lots of goals and people were saying, oh, it's the keeper. They weren't really looking at the quality of the goal itself. I don't think he hasn't done anything wrong as such. I don't think he's any howlers. He hasn't really, I don't look at any of the goals we've conceded and gone, oh, keeper's on a bet with that. What do you think? Am I being too much on one side of a fence or what? What do you think?
No, I can see why. I think everyone knows your opinion on the other goalkeeper. So I think it's good that you've handed it over to me because I'm quite torn on the two of them, to be honest. What I would say is I think both goalkeepers are probably a downgrade on the two we used last season. I don't think that's unfair to say that from what we've seen of both of our current goalkeepers in a Forest shirt, should I say. But that said, we did manage to get a four-time Champions League winner on loan and someone who earns 200 grand a week. I mean, come on, you're not going to get quality like that every transfer window. I agree with you. I don't think a lot of the goals he's conceded is doing. I mean, look at the West Ham game. I mean, he made that ridiculous save, and then we've defended like a not senior league team again from set pieces and conceded. I mean, I go back to a point I made on this podcast. It might have been last season, it might have been earlier this season. I genuinely think we have and this isn't just supporters. I tell you what winds me up in modern day football. This is one of my bugbears when they don't have a goalkeeper on the panel. So you'll get Gary Neville and Roy Keane and Micah Richards sat there going, yeah, he should save that. And then on TalkSport, they'll have Shay Given or something and he'll say, oh, no, it's a great goal. You've got to have it's same with the refereeing aspect. You've got to have someone who's been in that environment to know what the person in question's going through. And I think a goalkeeper is such a specialist position. And some people just every goal we concede, there'll be someone that says, "I think the keeper should have done better." I don't know if that's just a Forest thing. I don't spend loads of time looking on other clubs' timeline, but I just get the impression that certainly in the world of social media, there's lots of people who will say, no matter how it's scored, what part of the net it goes in, should have done better. There'll be someone somewhere that will somehow find a reasoning for Vlachodimos saving Jimenez's first one last night, where he's got no chance. So yeah, I do tend to agree with what you've just said. I think it's a bit of a conundrum for him because obviously last season when Henderson was conceding a lot of goals, we had Hennessy in reserve, who was very much viewed as a number 2 goalkeeper, whereas now we've got a goalkeeper who, I know what you say, Christian, he's not played a lot of first team football and he has spent his career as a pro, usually as the number 2, but he will have signed for us wanting to be the number 1 and he's had a little taste of being a number 1. So it's a difficult one because naturally any manager will look at the goals they concede in. And yeah, we are losing 3 and 4 and 5 with Vlachodimos between the sticks. But it's a difficult one. I think I'm glad I'm not the manager having to make it, but I think what is annoying that some fans the most about Vlachodimos is he perhaps does seem a little bit hesitant off his line for some crosses, whereas Turner I always got the impression with Turner he'd try and get there even if he had to punch it away. But it's strange. I don't know if he's just struggling with a confidence crisis as well because was it his debut against Villa when he kept the clean sheet? He came for a couple in that game and looked pretty assured. So you don't have a CV like Vlachodimos and not be a good goalkeeper. But again, some of our fans have watched him play for 5 games and he's not good enough. So
I think
it is what
it may be because he looks a bit calmer, doesn't he, as well than Turner for me in terms of his aura. Maybe fans look at it and think, "Oh, Turner looks a bit more like as if he cares a bit more because a bit more of his aggressive nature." But they're just like throwaway comments, Lee. Where could the keeper done better? I mean, I looked at like some comments on Facebook, and there was people like after the Everton game, just chuck some of the academy lads in. The academy lads have just been beat by League 2 Doncaster 3-0. Or there was one guy, there must be a good striker in the academy. There must be. But I went to watch the academy lads at Doncaster the other night, and with respect to him, Julian Lawson didn't get a kick. They tried and they did well for 40 minutes in that game, but experience shows, and this is League 2 level, you know what I mean? Not the Premier League. I mean, there's just so many throwaway comments in football without any substance and...
I go back to when we had Samba, and we know what Samba was like. Across his line, he was really rapid.
Yeah.
And he made saves that he had no right to save. Yeah, he went through a little phase. I think it was at the start of just before Houghton got sacked. He went through a little phase where he conceded some pretty shit goals.
Yeah, near
Oh,
post.
sorry. But yeah, like he went through a phase of being like, right at his near post all the time, but then he would concede a really good goal, and people would be like, "Keeper again, should save it." Like, come on.
Well, my best example is again under Chris Hughton. I mean, people were getting on Lewis Graben's back. And we weren't creating nothing for him. I mean, what's a bloke meant to do? A goal scorer is only good as the people who provide him the chances. He was literally getting absolutely nothing. Oh, what's Graben done today? Well, if he stood up front and nobody's giving him the ball, what can you do? You know what I mean? So there's just a lot of throwaway comments in football, like I say, without any substance. And to be fair, I've looked at the keeper, and there hasn't really been a goal where I'd say I'd agree with. I think, oh yeah, I should have saved that. I mean, the one where I will note is, for balance sake, is he got away with one against Everton where he come out and dropped it, which was poor, and thankfully their striker spooned it over.
The thing is, I think the thing is with Henderson, when he was conceding lots of goals, we were conceding lots of shots, and Henderson also made quite a few decent saves. Whereas
the
seems
Liverpool game is an example.
It seems to me at the minute where Vlachodimos is letting goals in, but the team aren't having loads of other shots.
He's not making a save.
He's like, oh, I've never seen him make a save. Well, and then
he made the one at West Ham, didn't he?
And I think am I being harsh? But then, you go back to the West Ham game. That's the only save I can really think of him making that he shouldn't have a right to save. And I think last night there wasn't really another shot that Fulham had that he had to make a save from. It's a bit of a strange one. But what I would say, with how much mud Cooper's been throwing, it wouldn't surprise me if he does make another change between the posts. I
hope not.
Don't know. One last roll of the dice.
Well,
I hope not as well. I think if you've got a keeper that you fancy as your number one, he plays, and if he's fit, he plays. And
people used to get on Samba's back, didn't they? And now look, because he's done really well at Lons in what people would also say is a Farmers League in another aspect. He's the best keeper in the world. So social media is social media. It's not real
you're
life,
right. I mean, the same people who were like heralding Samba and like say, "Oh, we should never let him go," but the same people were saying, "Get him out of the team for Horvath." Thursday, drop him. It's so funny. It's such a fickle sport.
People change opinions on a week by week basis, don't they?
And it's the old cliche as well, but I've got to throw it in there. If you're a goalkeeper and you make a mistake, typically you're picking the ball out of the net.
Yeah,
it's nature of the beast playing in that position, and I think sometimes people struggle to kind of use that as a bit of a balancing act, to be honest.
No, it's true. But anyway, we'll look ahead to Saturday's 3:00 fixture at Molineux. See, last year we went and it was a battle of two penalties. We missed one, they scored one, and we lost 1-0. That was a pretty dismal day at Molineux. So hopefully this one doesn't get much worse. Although
let's hope they don't put the social media post up this year. What was it? Oh, can you
playtime.
Yeah, that's it. Dennis with the Wolf Cubs, wasn't it? Jesus Christ! I
ran that, honestly.
Yeah, I think someone got sacked for that. Can you imagine it? Put that up again. Let's go for it.
Oh, dearie me. But anyway, Wolves at home. Wolves away, sorry, Molineux. Reiss, what do you think? Do we have any chance?
Well, as you said earlier, Christian football does throw up, funny things into it. I mean, I generally thought it was going to kind of throw up of Lopetegui going back to Wolves as our manager, and it would have been written in the stars, wouldn't it? That he'd have gone back there with a won and Gibbs White they got the winner. I mean, that would have rattled the Black Country, the gold from the Black Country, wouldn't it? But of course, we've got a chance. I mean, if we play how we did in the last two games, then no, we've got no chance, because I've watched Wolves a few times this season, and I'll give them credit where they do. I think they're a decent outfit. I think the manager was he was a rookie last season, still is a rookie really, but he did a really good job at Bournemouth, kept them up when, let's be honest, no one thought he would. I know he probably, you'd have to say maybe harshly got given the bullet, and then he's basically Wolves have took a chance on him because they're pretty much skint, aren't they? Really is the real reason, and he's done a good job. Every time I watch them, they look really a decent team to watch. I think the one aspect you could probably say is the lack of goals, but they seem to have solved that because that Hwang Yi-chan, I think, has got 8 this season, and I was watching the Spurs game where they come back brilliantly in the last couple of minutes, where it was like, oh, they could do with a striker these, and then they ended up winning the game and clawed it out. And they seem pretty solid at home, don't they? They beat Spurs, they beat Burnley the other night. I think they drew with Newcastle and Villa at home, beat Manchester City at home. So it's going to be a real tough game, especially with how we're playing. And I went to last season's game away. That was an absolute tedious game. I mean, it was decided by the one bit of quality of a player on the pitch that day, Ruben Neves, who was the best player on the park. I mean, I said after the Everton game, I didn't think we could play any worse at Fulham, and we did. I mean, surely we can't play any worse than we did last night, because you'd be going close towards double figures, to be honest, if we did. I do think they'll get a little bit of a response, but if we do go behind, which I think we will do, I fear we'll just huff and puff, and I think Wolves will kind of keep us at arm's length, as they did, according to the media, against Burnley the other night, held them off. So it's going to have to be 2-0 to Wolves for me, I'm afraid. Because if I went with my heart, I'd be lying. Because, yeah, if I'm a betting man, I'd be lumping on Wolves Saturday, I'm afraid. I am a betting man.
Yeah, it's very difficult to sort of disagree with that, really. Lee, what about you? Do you think maybe we rotate the pack again? Do you think maybe it goes back to a 5? Do you think, effectively it's, obviously I know he's spoken about how he doesn't want to see it this way because it's not helpful, but it's effectively a 90-minute shootout for his job as such. Do you think he might do something to try and keep it tighter, or?
I don't know. I don't know. It's dead easy, isn't it, to say I hope he goes out swinging, but if we do that in the Premier League, I think we'll probably just get picked off. I just don't know who you'd play if we play 5 at the back, because you want your wing backs getting involved, and I just don't see us having. I don't know.
The two have been isolated, really.
I suppose
with the 2, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I guess they would, but they're not going to come in, are they, and play?
Well,
I suppose
you wouldn't think so, would you?
No. I don't know. I tend to agree with Rory. So I don't think I wouldn't be telling the truth if I thought we could go and win. I think the best we can probably hope for is to produce a defensive masterclass akin to the one at Brighton away last year, and hope for a 0-0. I don't know. I've just got a sneaky feeling we are going to score at some point. I don't know. I'll go for a 2-1. I don't really want to say which way, because it wouldn't surprise me with how football is for us to go and get a reaction. What I would say is we're going to have to play a hell of a lot better than we did yesterday. And I guess we'll truly see whether that was a bit of a blip or if the players have completely down tools. But yeah, I'll go for 2-1 Wolves. It seems like a sensible pick.
The drop off is like, usually it's like a steady decline until you get to a point where there's no coming back. But the drop off from the Brighton game has been like literally here, and it's just gone off a cliff. Because we were losing by a goal, weren't we, with respect to 2 teams who are in Europe, and then we literally fell off a cliff the last 2 games. There's clearly something happened to me.
I think, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I agree with you, because I mean, I said before on the last pods, I don't think that Fulham are a particularly good team. They will finish maybe 14th at best. They are very much a one-man side in Pellegrini. If you take him out of that team, they crumble. And yet
you can guarantee they won't get 5 against anyone else this season.
No, of course they won't. They won't play anyone else as bad as we were, and we likewise we will not play anyone as bad as we were last night either. Like, it's just, like I said, saying to you earlier, whenever we got the ball, they closed us down within a second. Whenever they got the ball, it was 4 or 5 seconds before a red shirt went to approach them. It was just silly. Like, they just, like, to let a team like, who, if you look at like mini leagues in the Prem, where we want to be is a mini league effectively with Palace, Everton, Fulham, Wolves.
Maybe Brentford.
Yeah, maybe Brentford at the top end of it, and possibly West Ham.
Bournemouth, maybe. I guess.
Bournemouth. Yeah. Well, yeah. And you want to be in that. You are sort of being at the top part of that mini league, and really, any loss to those teams is going to be more damaging than others. So to lose 5-0 to one of those teams is really, really bad. So yeah, something is.
I'm not sure if you can remember this, Christian, but it was in the first half. I think we'd just gone 1-0 down, but Kelvin Bassey had it at the back for them. and he was stood there for probably a good 10 seconds, stood there with the ball, looking. And then we was like looking at each other, and then Riga was like, "Oh, I'll go and close him down." Then I was just like, "Jesus."
Yeah, it wasn't good.
You've got to press at this level. That's why Everton got a lot of joy on Saturday. They pressed, they put the forces into giving the ball away. Yeah, you've got to. We don't press enough, unfortunately.
No, we don't. And that's probably explains Adam's prediction, who's just come back to me now. 3-0 Wolves, according to Adam. So no room for sentiment at all of him. Just bite the bullet and go.
Come on, Christian. Predict us to win, and we'll end it on a positive note. Come on, you can do it. I thought Lee was going to do it for us all, because there'll be people watching and listening to this like, look at these miserable bees. Look.
Well, I did say 2-1, but I don't know which way. I mean, I
did say Wolves in the end though.
I can't put my hand up and say I think we'll win, because I'd just be lying. It's going to take another massive turnaround, but we'll see.
I'm concerned because Wolves, barring some truly borderline corrupt VAR calls, would probably be a top 10 sides. They've been really good under O'Neill, and I thought they'd really struggle.
Top 4.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Is it 7 points VAR's cost them? I think it's
something like that. Yeah, obviously they were robbed at United. They were robbed at Fulham.
They'll get all 12 penalties back this Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'll be it. Yeah, every single
7 points would put them joint 8 with Brighton. So
tell you what, if we have that ref again from last night, it might well do. He was atrocious. Like you said, sorry, I'm digressing massively, but it just felt like the slightest tap on a white shirt, foul, and I think it gets punted into the advertisement hoardings. Oh, that's fair play. Don't worry about that. Oh, Joker. Anyway, but
I don't think we can even blame the ref for last night.
No, of course we can't. It doesn't help though. It's like but yeah, go back to Wolves. God, it's just like, they're a good team. They've been a lot better than I expected them to be, even despite losing people like Nunes, for example. Cunha's coming to his own a bit this season. Him and Wang are linking up very well, which is precisely why I'm going to go for a 1-0 Forest win against all odds. And we'll find a way to shut them out. It'll be 5 at the back. It'll be ugly. It'll be horrible. It'll be, last on match today by a country mile of about 2 shots on target the whole game, but one of them will be nestled in the back of Jose Sarr's net. I'm going to say it now, 1-0 Forest. We'll end the slump. Cooper will get another chance at the City grounds. That's the positive send-off.
Well, yeah, that's the hope, isn't it?
That's the hope.
In that way.
And hopefully we don't have to do a podcast next week going through a new manager with someone else. But that is for another time. Thank you, listener and viewer, for tuning in with us today. Sorry, it isn't a happy, upbeat podcast, but it's not exactly a happy, upbeat time at the minute. So, but hopefully the next one will be.
Just a final one, Christian. I did put my Christmas tree up there. I thought that might cheer people up a little bit.
Very festive, yeah, very festive. But yes, hopefully the next one is more positive. We'll soon see. Forest do have a tendency to pluck out surprising results.
I think that Christmas tree would have been kicked down if I was at yours last night, Lee.
I put it up today. I only put it up today.
I don't blame you after last night.
Oh, dear me. But yes, thank you all the same. And fingers and toes crossed for our trip to the Black Country. Come on, you Reds.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.